Well, hi everybody. Luke's back from the London Olympics and can tell us a bit about how he found the games.
They were great. It was incredible how organised the whole experience was. From first of all landing at the airport and being rushed through very quickly. Got my accreditation kind of approved at the airport, and that helped me get through customs very quickly, and even to our accommodation very quickly. The whole of London was kind of set up really for the games. They had special games lanes for traffic, and buses were all had accreditation and the like. And apart from having to go through daily security checks to get into the venue, and I mean that's understandable. That was probably the only thing that kind of slowed us down from day to day.
Now, when in the first video you told us that the gear that you'd be working with was unknown really until you got there. So what ended up happening? Which camera were you operating?
I ended up operating a camera above the 10-metre diving board, which kind of looked down over the top. So I could do a bit of a track along. It was a robotic camera, which I controlled with a foot switch and kind of panel, and I could determine where I wanted the camera to go along that track. So it would track along, and I could move the camera head by just a joystick. That sat above the 10-metre pool, so it would kind of creep out over the top of the divers just before they dived, and then you could kind of zoom down with them as they dived into the water.
Okay, I noticed a couple of shots where you saw the people actually moving their toes.
Oh, yeah.
That was you.
Yeah, the angle from above looking down was me.
When they're standing on their
toes,
head, standing on their arms, head, whatever, and toes pointing up in the air.
Yeah, that was me.
Saw their toes
me
going.
Seeing them. I mean, part of that was to show their brain activity, what's going on before they dive,
right?
And the effects that it was having.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And how did the gear compare with the sort of stuff that you use over here?
Oh, look, it was all professional gear. It was the same kinds of equipment.
Right.
They had I'm not sure how many different events had 3D coverage, but diving certainly had 3D coverage.
Right.
So that was like a whole separate team, a whole separate crew, less cameras, and they would take some of our footage and they would utilise some of their own in order to build up a 3D coverage.
Okay.
And apart from that, it was a lot of the same gear.
Yep.
There wasn't much new that I thought, I haven't seen something like that before.
Okay.
They were testing out some really high resolution image capturing, but I didn't see any of that. But there was a couple of cameras there for that as well.
Right. And what about the people who were there? Were there other people from all over the world?
So on our crew, basically, we covered water polo, diving and swimming, and that was a New Zealand and Australian crew.
Okay.
But different events had different countries. I know, say with the archery, there was I think it was a Japanese crew. I'm not sure where English crews were set up, but there would have been all over the world. Crews would have come in to do certain events. We were using French trucks, so I think my understanding is some of the trucks had just come off the Tour de France. So it was like quickly get them in, get them set up, get them working, and then some of them had already packed up by the time I was leaving. So there was no messing around getting the equipment in and then getting it back out again. Yeah.
And what about behind the scenes sort of things that we wouldn't have seen on the TV telecast? Is there anything that happened that that would be interesting to know about?
Probably more of it would be day-to-day things. Things like security was massive. It was just things like when we got to the airport, there were shuttle buses ready for us to get to the airport to our accommodation. There was buses every day from our accommodation to the venue. It was all very easy. We had along with our accreditation, we had an Oyster card, so we could travel on the underground or any of the train systems.
Yeah.
So it just meant that even in our free time, we were kind of catered for. So it felt very smooth, very seamless. Meals were catered for. So there wasn't a lot over there that we kind of had to think of. It was more just, okay, what's our next event? When do we need to be there?
Yep.
And then apart from that, you know, just getting through day to day.
Yep. And what about London in general? Being a first-time visitor, anything particular about the place that struck you?
I was really blown away arriving in London. I've got childhood memories of aspects of London, not being there, but just hearing about. And it was amazing to, you know, see Big Ben for the first time and drive past and go, wow, that is an incredible structure. Seeing St Paul's Cathedral was amazing. Going on the Eye, and first of all, just the structure itself and how it functions was incredible. But then, you know, what you can see of London town is incredible. Seeing, you know, little boroughs and some of what would have been the old town and the old streets was incredible. And then just seeing the architecture and so many monuments and just the attention to detail that someone has spent over, you know, hundreds of years in order to make this town what it is.
Yep. Well, sounds like Luke had a great time.
Yeah.
And we thank him for telling us all about his experience and giving us a personal understanding of what happened over in London. So, okay, thanks, Luke.
No worries.